Is it part of your job to trip people up or to see if you can?
Trip people up.
Trip people up. We never thought that Mr. Schaefer was leaving the next day. You may recall, I thought exactly the opposite.
Gee, I forgot about that. I get confused sometimes, you know. I mean, just trying to keep all the facts straight in my head.
Lieutenant, you must never underestimate me. Nor I you. I don't in the least mind you're playing tricks. But you're going to have to be a little cleverer, aren't you?
Greetings, everybody, and welcome to the next episode of the Columbo Confab podcast. I am not Sean.
You're not.
I'm sorry.
Yes, you are.
I am not Steve.
Oh.
And
Okay, yeah. And I am Steve, and you're Sean.
I think we should rehearse these things sometimes. I really do.
So I think it would help.
Yeah.
You like to throw me off. You try to trick me.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm a very smart woman, so you cannot trick me. Just that was a line that was said in tonight's episode. Actually,
Yeah.
I am not actually a smart woman. I'm neither of those. But
I
tonight,
like your hair, Steve. Daryl.
thank you. Yes. So tonight we're reviewing Old Fashioned Murder.
Yeah.
With Joyce Van Patten.
Joyce Van Patten. Did you say Grace Van Patten?
I said Joyce.
Oh, you did? I'm sorry.
Thanks for listening.
So, okay, before we get into that, I just want to say... Oh, by the way, does she look familiar to you at all? We discussed...
Well, yeah, we talked about it. When she was in Negative Reaction.
Right.
She was the nun. What was her name in that? I forgot.
I don't know, Sister
Two
Mary Olsen, I
completely
don't know.
different characters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So-
she was two. Yeah.
So she's the curator of the Lytton Museum, owned by the family, and I just want to... The first shot we see in this story is the sign, the Lytton Museum, and then the hours, which are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 to 6, Sunday, 3 to 5, closed Monday and Tuesday. My follow-up question to that is, why fucking bother having a museum? And why are you going to complain that you don't have any money if you're open less than 24 hours in a week? I don't know.
Well, I would have if I had a museum, which I will never experience. I'm sure I don't want one. But for hours, I would be open all day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I would have full, lengthy hours. I would then have maybe very restrictive hours for maybe take Monday, Tuesday off or whatever, but maybe be open for a couple hours. And then have schools, like try to get schools to come in and have them do private tours and stuff like that.
Yeah. I don't think...
They'd be making millions of pennies.
I just want to say that I think this is the worst museum that ever was. It is the most boring, like somebody went to a antique shop or a flea market and bought up all the rusted stuff that they could find and put it on display in this museum. And it's in a really nice building that looks like...
Have they reused the outside location? Looks familiar. Have they used that before in Columbo?
I don't think so. I may be wrong, but I don't think so. The same with the interior. I don't think so. But tell us who our cast of characters are, sir.
Sure. So we have the Lytton family, which is Ruth, who's the murderer. We have Janie, who's her niece, maybe her daughter. I don't know. They kind of flirted with that idea later. We have Phyllis, who is Janie's mother, officially, and we also have Edward. So those are the Lytton family. They're all kind of like snobby little crazy nut jobs. They all are different in their own way. We also have one of my favorite. I have two favorite characters in this episode. This is one of them. Is the security guard. His name is, what was his name? Milton Schaefer.
Oh, I didn't catch his person.
Yeah, Milton. I love Milton because he's in a fucking museum. He's a security guard. He walks around with a pistol. People ask him, "What's this?" I don't know.
I really have no idea.
I don't care. But he. Oh, go ahead.
But to be fair, would you really ask the security guard? I mean,
Probably not. No. He also smokes while he's doing his job, and even though there's an ashtray literally inches away from him, he will throw his half-lit cigarette on the ground and let it burn.
yeah, did you? which he does twice, and I think they reuse the same shot of him doing it the second time they show it.
And absolutely clueless. Do you think he was doing it on purpose, or was he just an asshole, or was he an idiot?
I don't know, but fun fact about him, he wrote the episode. That guy. I should have wrote his fucking
Really?
name. Yeah,
That's great. Okay.
The story was written by Peter S. Fisher, who wrote many of these stories. And the story, but the actual script, the teleplay, was written by that gentleman. So.
Oh, that's fascinating. No, that is cool.
Yeah.
We do learn about Ruth almost immediately. She obviously doesn't like Milton very much.
Mm-hmm.
She's quite a bitch.
Wait! I want to going back a second. You said you had two favorite characters. What was the second one?
Oh, we'll get to that. Don't worry. There is another character.
Okay.
Character.
I know who it is. Okay, all right.
You
Okay.
already know.
Okay, I know who it is.
If you've watched the episode, you know exactly who I'm thinking of. Very distinctive individual. But anyways, we learned that Ruth is a bit of a bitch. The people that were trying to find out what some artifact was, she tells them very coldly where the headphones were.
Yeah.
I'd be like, fuck you, I'm not coming back. No wonder there's nobody coming to the museum.
There's
They
books.
got a personnel problem.
There's books with cassette tapes over there. Yeah, okay, Lady Averlane of Make Believe World here with your museum, or whatever that puppet's name was. Remember that from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood? Maybe it's because I was just watching Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
That's really weird.
Lady Lavaine Fairchild, boomerang, toomerang, and she had her museum. Never mind.
What?
Not going down that rabbit hole. But
so she doesn't like the security guard for his sloppiness.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she doesn't like her brother because her brother, very wisely, wants to close down the museum, liquidate everything, and he says we will have millions of dollars if we just close this museum down, and we'll live quite well.
Right.
But she is very attached to the museum, although she's working like an ox, trying to keep it up, and she's been working there as long as she can. I mean, as long as she's been able to work, because that was in her family. Ruth, actually, you say she's a bitch, but actually I feel kind of bad for Ruth. I feel that she's kind of, her older sister got away with everything. Her older sister goes to parties. She got married. She had the kids, supposedly. Ruth is the one that was just the dowry one. Okay, you're just going to be a spinster and take care of the family business. So she's kind of shat upon by the rest of her family.
She is, yeah. But I do feel sorry for Edward. And like you said, I think it's probably be best to, if you're bleeding money, like I think he said that exactly, the museum is bleeding money. They need to redo things because it's not profitable for them to keep it open. So Edward, the brother, he suggests that they sell everything, they liquidate. But he did notice that there were a few missing artifacts, a few Renaissance artifacts, but he's going to stay the night, which sets him up nicely for the impending death. Then he's going to spend the night doing inventory. And one of the interesting things, very early clue. I think you like clues.
I love clues.
As she leaves for Edward to look at whatever he's looking at, she turns off the light because she's used to trying to save money by turning the lights out, which that will be one of her downfalls.
The first downfall, the downfall. So she approaches the security guard, Milton Schaefer, and by the way, he is the brother of Janie's boyfriend.
Lover.
Yeah, definitely a lover. Excuse me, I'm going to open up another carbonated beverage here. These are delicious. I'm on number 3 now.
Wow.
So Ruth goes to Milton Schaefer, and says, look, I know you're a loser. I know you've been pilfering artifacts. and I know that there's people after you because you have a gambling problem. So let's work something out. Let's do something that would be mutually beneficial. She says, I want you to go into the museum at 2 o'clock this morning, and I want you to stage a burglary because all of these items are insured. And Schaefer, being the, whatever he is... Oh, and she also tells him that she's arranged to send him off or give him a fake passport with another name so he can escape these people that are after him. And on top of that, what he does is at 9 o'clock that night, in a phone booth, mind you, he has a gun. He calls his brother, and he gets his brother's high-tech answering machine, and he says... He says, "Hey,
I'm so glad later when the brother plays back the audio from this voice machine that he doesn't have Columbo touch it. He knows Columbo's gonna have a hard time understanding this thing." But yeah.
So he says in this sealed phone booth, "Oh wait, they're coming after me! Look out!" Holds the phone down and then almost practically fires a gun into the receiver. Now, if you were in a phone booth and it's 1970 whatever, and you fire a gun in the phone booth, you will be deaf. That was, yeah. So it looks like by the time, I don't know, how did he know?
Yeah, I think I'm leaning more towards Milton not being that bright.
Well, how did they know that his brother wouldn't check his voicemail until the next day? What if his brother answered the phone? What if his brother checked?
Maybe his brother never picks up the phone. Maybe he does checks and listens before he. But yeah, so the reason the brother doesn't answer the phone is because he's screwing around with Janie, and he thinks it's his wife, so he doesn't want to pick up.
How did he know that? Anyway, or how did Ruth know that?
Well, they say it early. Ruth does say, "Look, you and your brother confide in each other. Janie confides in me, so we know a lot about one another." But yeah, I don't know if that's an explanation.
How did they know that they would be together at 9 o'clock that night? Anyway.
Yeah. So Janie comes home. We finally get to meet her mother, Phyllis Lytton, or Lytton. Is it Lytton?
Lytton. Actually, her mother has a different last name, and I can't remember what it is. It starts with an S because she married some guy. I should say there's 3 characters I really like because Phyllis is hilarious. She's well written. I feel like somebody that is very close to how you and I are in a way. She loves cocktails. She says funny things. She could do a podcast, I think. But yeah, we find out she loves going to cocktails. And she faints. She faints whenever you mention murder or foul play.
Yeah. She's very, very. Yeah, she's not made of stern stuff, even though she keeps insisting she is.
So she is played by an actress named Celeste Holm, who was actually quite famous back in her younger days. I think she still was famous.
Oh, really?
Yeah, she won an Academy Award in 1948, I think, for Gentleman's Agreement. Yeah, she was a big star back then.
She does look familiar, but yeah, I don't know what from.
Yeah,
one of the things she says about Ruth missing the inventory, she says, "The day you forget an inventory will be the day I miss a cocktail party." I'm like, I love this woman. She's great.
I don't know about her so much, but whatever.
But her and Ruth are like 2 different sides of a coin.
Yeah.
Completely opposite. Like you said, Ruth is more of a spinster, an old maid, as she calls herself later. But yeah, Ruth is just... sorry, not Ruth. Phyllis is a bit of a party animal. She loves to go out and party. She likes to sleep around. As a matter of fact, we find out later that she steals Ruth's boyfriend, or not boyfriend, but her fiance. Ends up stealing him and basically stealing Ruth's future. Mm-hmm. Which I'm surprised Ruth didn't kill her. Be quite honest.
Yeah, there's a real motive for murder there, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, they have a real sordid past. There was something I didn't... Well, we'll talk about it in a little while, but... and Janie does a lot of smoking.
Yes, a lot of smoking.
Yeah, and I don't know, just trying to make everybody happy. She adores Ruth. She adores her boyfriend who's married. But anyway, so this whole time Ruth has got murderous plans. Poor Edward is over at the stupid museum doing his inventory while all three of the ladies are just, going on date, going to cocktail parties and reading. Excuse me.
Yeah.
And so
poor Edward. Yeah, he's the workhorse. And of course it's the actor. Oh, what was his name? I remember seeing him in Buck Rogers.
he was also in Double Shock.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
He was a lawyer in that. Yeah.
Poor guy. He's working late. It's 2:00 in the morning. Milton Schaefer shows up at the museum, and he's stealing some artifacts and putting them in a briefcase. He likes one in particular. Maybe he's going to wear it later on, and he puts
like a disco medallion.
he's gonna when he poses in front of the mirror after he moves to the island with his tuck. Oh, I would fuck me. I'd fuck me. Anyway, so then he puts that in his pocket, and then Ruth shows up. Oh, hi, Milton. Hi, Mr. Schaefer.
Yeah, she does. She initially says, "I'll meet you at 3:00 at such and such corner," but he wasn't expecting Ruth to be there.
Mm-hmm.
So she shows up, surprises Milton,
And
he's
he's like, "What the fuck are you doing here? What the hell?" And she says, "Well, I had to meet you now. Really quick, would you mind going and walking over to the phone booth over there with your briefcase?" "Oh, okay." So he does that, and she shoots him. Lucky for her, her brother upstairs hears the gunshot, but instead of calling the police like a wise person would, he comes downstairs going, "Who's there? Who's there?"
Well, and before he does that though, while he's doing the inventory, he's recording into a tape recorder.
Yes.
What he's like. So medallion, studded diamonds, 3 inches diameter. Then he would go down. He was recording his notes, which is something that comes into play much later.
Right. So she then shoots him and to make it look like there was a robbery. Yeah, she shoots the brother to make it look like a robbery, that Milton was robbing the place. The brother walked in on him with a gun, and they shot each other. And
as she leaves the crime scene, she mistakenly turns off the lights.
Yeah. She almost trips up. There's a nice touch where she suddenly realizes, like, oh, that's right, Milton's supposed to be on the phone when he shot, so she takes the phone off the receiver at the payphone. Mm-hmm. And what I love after she does that?
Did she tell him? Did she tell Milton to call her brother, or call his brother?
He did at 9:00.
Yeah, but I did. Did Ruth tell him to do that?
Yes.
Okay.
So they would make it look like. I mean, they had to make it look. She told him, "We have to make it look like you're dead." So we're going to arrange this phone conversation. So he did that. And then she made sure she shot him while he was by the phone booth in the museum.
And Milton's radar never went off any of these times.
No, no.
It just...
Oh, and by the way, when she shoots Edward's dying scene is so dramatic. He just like, like he really puts the acting 101 into that. He falls over some of the barricades that are there. It's so dramatic. But what a bitch to kill your own brother. I just think I just don't get it. I'd really rather just sell that museum myself than keep it up. But anyway, so they're both dead. And when she turns the light off, was this a clue that was obvious to you? Because I got it the first time I saw it. I was like, oh, that's not good.
Yeah, it was. Well, because they pointed it out at the beginning that
Yeah.
she instinctively turns off lights, and we'll discuss why that's important later. But yeah, so she has now killed 2 people, and next scene we see Columbo visiting Tim Schaefer, or Dr. Schaefer, which is Milton's brother, because he was reviewing his messages that morning and heard the one with the gunshot and called the cops, which is what, as you said, Edward should have done in the first place. But
does it mean, or does Dr. Schaefer look like an actor from like a 1950s cigarette ad? Like he's just so like suave and hi. I'm Dr. Tim Schaefer. 6 out of 7 doctors recommend Lucky Strikes. You know who he looks like? You know who he reminds me of? It is Mike TV's dad from Willy Wonka. Pop says I can't get one till Pop says I can't have a real one yet, can I, Pop? Not till you're 12, son. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
Okay.
I don't remember the parents though at all,
Yeah.
except for Veronica. What was her name? The one that turned into a blueberry. I remember her dad.
Oh, yeah. Sam Bogart here. You know she died. Did you know that little girl died?
Really?
Yeah, like about a month
how
or
old?
so ago. She was in her 60s.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
She's the first of the 5 kids from that show or from that movie to die. So, yeah. And then there were 4.
So during this episode, Columbo is suffering from allergies.
Oh, he's got yeah. There's a great line, but keep going. I'm sorry.
Oh, is there? What? No. What line?
Well, the doctor says, "Do you want me to give you a prescription for an antihistamine? It would clear that up." And Columbo's response to that was, "No, it just makes me sleepy, and it's 7:30 in the morning. That's a dangerous thing." Anyway, okay, continue. I'm sorry.
I'm glad you liked it. So Columbo then his next business is to go to the museum, and he meets Ruth for the first time, asking about Milton certain questions, and then he asks if Janie hired Milton because then he's got questions for her. No, I'm sorry. It wasn't at the museum. It was at their house.
Yeah, it was at their house.
My bad.
Columbo goes to the museum first, though. And I want to talk about a certain character here. Columbo's little right-hand man is Sergeant Miller.
Yeah.
Sergeant Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is probably one of the worst performances in Columbo history.
Really?
Sergeant Miller has a very deadpan voice. It never goes above or below this. And it's always... He's like Marcy if Columbo was Peppermint Patty. And I was listening to another Columbo podcast recently. The Columbo is... And they had
cheating.
No, I know. This was their last episode. And they were making fun of how he says, "You know, sir, I know a thing or two about relics." You know, sir, I know a thing or two about relics. Like... He has this very ASMR. It's just very badly done. And I looked him up, and thank God he's only been in 2 things. This and something else that I didn't even know what it was.
Well, Sergeant Miller never showed back up. So
No,
he obviously was fired from the force after this mystery, and
Yeah.
never should return.
Yeah.
But so at the home we see Ruth basically tell...
Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. Can we talk about the crime scene?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so, first of all, did you notice anybody familiar at the crime scene?
Was it when they were doing the investigation by the phone booth?
Yes.
What's his name? Oh, shit.
Did you catch him? Did you see him?
Yes, I did. Yeah.
Mike
I
Lally.
can't think of it. That's it, yeah.
Mike Lally was in it. He's got maybe one line, but you can mostly recognize him from the back, and there's a side profile shot. I don't know if he's the fingerprint guy or whatever, but there's a really nice shot of like all 3 of them looking at the dead body, and it's shot from inside the phone booth.
Yes, very very tight shot.
Yeah, and they discover that Schaefer is wearing tropical clothes, brand new shoes.
With little rubbers on them.
With rubbers, yeah. Oh, galoshes.
Well, they kind of slip on the soles of the shoe.
Yeah.
It was weird. I've never seen anything like that before.
Brand new shoes, and Columbo touches the bottom of the shoes, and I'm like, ew, don't do that.
Yes.
And he also had a haircut recently.
Yes, his hair was everywhere. It was so gross. Wouldn't he be concerned that we'd be leaving evidence? I mean, I know DNA evidence back then probably wasn't as sophisticated as it is now, but...
I don't even think it existed back then.
Yeah, probably not. But his hair would have been everywhere. And he also got a manicure. He had very nicely manicured fingertips.
And he has a note on him that says, after midnight, turn back twice. Right? What does the note say?
Turn right twice.
Turn right twice after midnight, which is kind of cool. It's kind of a puzzle for the viewing audiences to figure out.
And he also, so his new watch, apparently it has May 1st, which is another clue, by the way, because it's got one of those date calendars. Now, it's kind of difficult for somebody living in 2019 that watches that had the date on them, because every month is not the same. Like February has 28 days typically, and you have your 30 and 31 day months, right? Mm-hmm. So I guess this watch would count to 31 days every time. Mm-hmm. So you would have to adjust that manually. So if there's only 30 days in the month, and you would have to manually rotate it twice to midnight, so it would have the first day 1 of the month.
Yeah, that
instead
was
of day 31.
That was a bit confusing for me, but after a while, my head grasped upon it. My head wrapped around it, and you know what? I realized I told you, back up. We have to talk about the crime scene. There's a lot happens before the crime scene that you were talking about, and I'm sorry.
Oh,
he goes and visits Ruth in the morning before the bodies are discovered. But keep on going. I'm sorry.
Well, yeah. So Ruth kind of tells him like, "Hey, be careful with Phyllis. She's if you tell her you're from homicide, she's going to faint." And by the way, she faints. I wish I would have counted this because I would have used it for our review number. But she faints quite a bit.
3 times
in this episode. Is it 3 times?
3 times, yeah.
Okay.
By the 3rd time, I think it got a little bit tiresome.
Oh, I thought it was funny.
No, you think so? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
We also hear Columbo, he's asking about why Janie hired Milton. Of course, they're being very coy with that. They don't want to tell Columbo anything about that just yet. But yeah, and then that's when Janie, we go back to the museum. Ruth and Janie want to go and finish up the inventory. And Ruth lets Janie discover, her uncle and Milton dead.
Oh, that's a good scene.
Yeah, because she's just waiting for her to react.
And not only does she stand there and she's waiting, just waiting, Janie comes around the corner and she's like, Aunt Ruth? Aunt Ruth? And then sticks her fist in her mouth and screams. It is definitely the best I've just discovered a body scene in Columbo. Way better than that lady in Dead Weight, who's on the boat and she sees the body.
Yeah. And her husband, who seems like, hey, that's pretty cool, standing next to her. But so we have a scene where the police squad cars are racing down the road. Columbo's in pursuit behind the cars, and of course they have to throw a little comedy in there. The cop cars all stop in front of the museum, and Columbo, I guess his brakes aren't that good. He slams into the back of the squad car. He doesn't slam into it; he bumps it.
And he's not. What does he say? Go ahead.
And we all know he has no seatbelts. So.
Yeah. It's okay, Lieutenant. The dent's on your car. Oh, all right.
Yeah, right. He didn't do any damage to the squad car.
Doesn't give a hoot about it. So, there's a really weird scene after the crime scene where Columbo was just sitting in the room where the murder took place.
Yes, I thought this was odd as well.
And Ruth is upstairs, and she knows that he's there because she looks out the window and sees his car. Mm-hmm. And he's just floating around, and she's really creepy, and she gets him some chamomile tea. And they discuss the crime scene, and the murder of the family.
So what is chamomile tea? I don't really know what that is.
It is a non-caffeinated tea. That's all I know, and it doesn't taste that good. I don't really care for it. It doesn't taste bad, but you need to put sugar in it. Otherwise, it will taste pretty bland. And that's all I know about it, really.
Yeah, and by the way, she notices that all the police have left, and so only Columbo's car is sitting in the parking lot, and so it's like they're playing a waiting game.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. She comes down. They talk. I can't remember what the hell they talk about.
Well, they talk about there's a painting. Why would they have a painting of Ruth in a museum? It's got center stage. I mean, it's literally a centerpiece of the room.
I don't know. It's a really good question.
But yeah, Columbo assumes that's her mother. She goes, "Oh, it must be your mother. She looks very happy. She's got a very happy face." And we find out from Ruth, and no, that's actually her before she had just gotten engaged. And then she reveals the story of where her sister Phyllis has stole her fiance, had a child with him, which is Janie. I'm sorry. So we kind of find that backstory.
Yeah. Now I've got a question for you, and I think you alluded to this earlier. Is it possible that Ruth is actually Janie's real mother?
I think so. I thought it was kind of hinted at, and then it got dropped.
Yeah.
Almost like there was a couple of lines of dialogue that Columbo says. It makes you start to wonder, because they call into question Janie's birth date, and so was either Phyllis was pregnant, 3 months pregnant at the time they got married, I would like to think that actually Ruth was pregnant while they went on their honeymoon.
Yeah, because you don't go on honeymoon when you're 3 months pregnant. It's a really bad time to go on a honeymoon.
Yeah,
and then, yeah.
But so during this scene when Columbo and Ruth are kind of connecting, Columbo kind of tells her a few things that bother him, and they're obviously playing a cat and mouse game of who's the most intelligent, and she kind of picks up that Columbo is playing her a little. He's playing some mind games, I think, as she calls it, but he won't. And she, I think, takes offense to it. Kind of my earlier statement when we opened this podcast, where she says, I'm a smart woman. Don't play mind games with me. I know what you're doing. But that's when Columbo says, well, what doesn't make sense to me at all is the lights. Why were the lights out? And she goes, what are you talking about? And he goes, well, for two people to accurately shoot themselves with one shot in the dark, that's impossible. And he goes, so the lights had to be on. And she goes, right. So the person that helped with the or whoever, someone must have helped in the robbery, and must have turned on the lights or something like that. Or no, I'm sorry, Edward must have turned on the lights. But he goes, well, then who turned the lights off? So there's a third party involved. That's what it was, yeah.
Yes. And I think at some point...
So who turned off the lights? And they can't turn off the lights if they're dead, so...
And she says, well, maybe he had an accomplice and they turned off the lights. And Columbo's like, well, why would they do that? And he also points out the fact that, well, he shows her the note that he had. He also points out the fact that Schaefer put a necklace in his pocket instead of in the bag with the other valuables. Like, why would he do that? It doesn't make any sense. He mentions all these things to her.
No.
And I don't think it's until the next scene that he took. Well, we'll get to that in a moment, because the next
scene is my favorite, one of my favorite characters. So Columbo goes to this salon, and we meet Daryl. Daryl's great. So Daryl's the stylist. He sees Columbo. Now, during this whole episode, I thought Columbo's hair was looking a little bit more rough. What's the word I'm looking for? A little more
disheveled,
than usual. Disheveled.
It's gonna be a bird that comes out of there.
So there apparently I think that was on purpose, because when Daryl sees Columbo, he thinks he's there for to get a haircut, and he goes, "I like a challenge." And another thing about Daryl, he's obviously very effeminate and very funny.
Gay.
Very funny guy.
Yeah, he's gay. And he...
I wasn't going to say it.
He says, recommended, instead of suing, just wear a hat. It'll grow out. And then when he says, I'm here to talk about a homicide. Okay, just arrest me. Put the handcuffs on me and let me go. Take me away.
He goes, yeah, well, put the handcuffs on me, and I'm surprised you don't beat me unconscious.
Like, Daryl, my God. Take a Xanax, Daryl. Have a cocktail. Jesus.
So, Columbo doesn't want to mess with this, so he basically says, okay, how about a haircut? And then he figures he can talk to him while he's getting a haircut. And a manicure. Now, let me ask you, Sean, have you ever had a manicure?
I have never had a manicure. Have you?
Never. Would you?
I would if it was free.
I wouldn't.
Why?
It seems so. I don't know.
It seems more proper for ladies who've got nails that paint their nails or something.
Yeah. And poor Columbo, the haircut he got. Did you like it? Did you
No,
like what Daryl did?
It looked awful. He looked like he looked like a creep, like a child molester. It was just terrible. I was like, get the wig off of him. Yeah, he looked like a bartender. You know what he looked like? He looked like in the movie Goodfellas, the guy that would say things twice. I'm going to get the papers. Get the papers. He looked like, a mafia stooge or something. But there's a follow-up joke to that. Oh yeah, it was $25 for the haircut, $5 for the manicure, and let me tell you, $25 for a haircut, that's expensive now. I can't imagine, that would be like $100 for a haircut now. And then he's like, "Oh, tip him 50 cents, Miller."
Right, 50 cents. I'm sure Daryl was very, very happy with his tip. But yeah, so he did. But the thing is that Columbo can't get his wallet because his nails are drying. So he gets Miller to get to his wallet, and he only has $5. Enough for a bowl of chili, basically, and maybe a cup of coffee.
Yeah,
but and a tip. But he doesn't have enough to pay the full bill, so he has Miller pay it. Poor Sergeant Miller.
I know.
He did not know going in he was going to have to pay for that stupid haircut.
And then he's going to have to explain later on, "Sir, I had no idea that I would have to pay for Columbo's haircut." That's my Sergeant
Do you
Miller
think
situation.
Do you think he would have expensed that out?
I don't know. I don't know. I have no idea. That's conjecture. I don't know.
Huh. So next Columbo goes to the watch. Oh, by the way, the reason he goes to the salon is because, as we mentioned earlier, Milton had a haircut. And so how did they just determine that he got a haircut there?
That's a very good question, and I don't know. Maybe the receipt was somewhere. I have no idea. That's a really good question.
And by the way, we didn't mention earlier when they found Milton in the phone booth, he had matching socks with his shirt, and the lining of his pant pocket matched the shirt.
Mm-hmm. You call that a lining? Yeah.
So Columbo next goes to the watch store.
Mm-hmm. What do you call a watch store? Is it a watchery? Is it a watch shop? Is it a jewelry shop? He goes to Lamar. Fuck, what's this? Pick me up here.
Lamar?
Louis Lamar. Who is the guy from Rip Torn played? What was his character's name?
Oh, I don't remember, but I know what you're talking about. He had a
Lamar.
jewelry store.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you think that was it? Okay. Maybe.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, it was the early incarnation of that. I think.
In the the salesman, the watch salesman, it then just tells us the month thing. Why the dates are different on Columbo's watch. Yeah. So we also find out that the salesman also knows Daryl, the stylist, for some reason.
I like your haircut, Daryl. Yeah, and it's funny because the whole time during the conversation, Columbo's looking in the mirror at himself, like, I'm not too sure about this.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan of it either.
So yeah, I was so glad when he got rid of it in the next scene. I'm like, thank goodness.
Grew up fast, huh?
Yeah. So the watch is important because he wanted it to be. Schaefer wanted it to be, even though it was like the last day of April. He's like, no. On I want it, if you're gonna have a calendar watch, you're gonna have to treat it like a calendar watch. So I think when it turns midnight, I'll put it out twice. So
but why would you write that down? How fucking hard would it be to remember that?
I think Schaefer was just so happy to have his nice clothes and his haircut.
Yes,
and
that's
all
probably
that.
The best. Yeah, he had nice clothes, new shoes, nice haircut from Daryl. I mean, obviously Daryl's got a reputation of being the best, and
yeah,
he's got a new watch. Yeah, he kind of went all out.
Yeah,
and he was ready to go on his. He was going to live it up.
So
Poor Darryl.
yeah,
Not Beryl. Poor Milton.
Poor Milton.
Yeah.
Also, I have to add, going back a moment, would you ever be comfortable asking me to get your wallet out of your back pocket?
Yeah. I
Really?
wouldn't have a problem with that.
Because
Yeah,
that's
why?
basically your ass.
No, it was his front pocket, wasn't it?
No, it was
Which may be even more bizarre because we saw, I guess Columbo has these really deep pockets. We see where he was talking to Ruth about something. He's trying to dig out something in his front pocket, and it must have gone down like a good 12 inches down there. I don't know what he was digging for.
I don't remember the part that you're talking about, but okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what he was pulling out of his pants. Oh, he had the medallion and the note about the turn right after midnight twice. Remember, he was like digging in his pants, like really. I mean, I don't know. Found a little weird. He was holding on to the medallion thing. But
So this proves, the watch thing proves that obviously Schaefer must have still been alive after midnight because that's when he turned his watch. So for May 1st.
And it was another clue that it was never really brought up, and I thought it definitely would have led this way, was the fact that obviously he's going on vacation. He's spending a lot of money. But if he's making $2 an hour or whatever it is that he's... Because they say that Janie was saying, we can't hire anybody. I mean, he's basically the only person with he knows how to handle a gun. He's been in the army. But nobody will... We can't hire anybody for this little. We can't... There's nobody who will take this job. So we're lucky to have this guy.
Uh-huh.
So they're paying him probably nothing.
Yeah, I know.
But all of a sudden he's starting to spend money. Well, the reason he's starting to spend money is because Ruth gave him $3,000 to do, like an early advancement on doing the job.
Which she basically, that's the money she's throwing away. I don't know where she got $3,000 so easily. But, yeah, he spends it on all that stuff. And I guess she expects him to spend it on burglary equipment. Yeah. Wherever you buy all that stuff, I'm not sure. He sure did a lot in that day. He went and bought a new wardrobe, got a haircut, got a watch. He bought all the burglary items. Maybe he already had those because maybe he has a record. And he went to the doctor's office to get a vaccination because he was traveling abroad. And
yeah, quite a busy day.
Yeah, so if you want to get in touch with your doctor to get a vaccination, that's like we'll schedule next week. That's not this afternoon. I don't know. Okay.
So we're back at the museum, and we see Ruth. She takes what looks to be some kind of tray, some kind of golden... in my notes I put ashtray, which is funny because that's what exactly it gets used for later. So she takes something out of the museum and she pockets it, and then she ends up actually placing it in Janie's room back at the house. She plants it.
Okay, I got a question for you, Steve. Okay, because this is, why does she do that?
Because I think Columbo feels it's an inside job. I'm not Phyllis. Ruth is an intelligent woman.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's on par. She's trying to stay a step ahead of Columbo, and in Columbo, I guess with his questioning, suspects it's something internal. There's a third party that he doesn't know about, but it has to be somebody that knows the routine of the museum.
Right.
And so I think Janie would be the perfect patsy for this.
Okay, you are correct. Yes. But why would she frame her niece that she obviously loves a great deal?
Well, you think she loves... I think that proves that she doesn't. I think she has just been kind of biding her time. I don't know. It seems so bizarre she would sabotage... Like, I could see her... I would think she would try to sabotage Phyllis first.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I don't... But, yeah, for Janie, that was shocking. Very cold.
Yeah, it was very cold. Does that mean that she's that Ruth is like a huge bitch, that she'll commit murder and even frame her niece for it? I don't think
Maybe.
she's that kind of. I think she's cold and calculating, but I don't think that she's so nasty that she would frame her own niece, because she's worked so hard for that museum, and she's worked so. I think they actually say she's worked so hard to, for her family. She's got this older sister who's a fucking airhead alcoholic. Her sister's the famous one, and Janie is like a daughter to her. So, and if she isn't her daughter.
Yeah,
So,
that kind of bothered me. Why would she go after Janie? I don't know. I didn't like that either.
It didn't. Yeah, maybe she just didn't like the wallpaper that Jenny put up in her
Oh
bedroom.
God, it was bad. Oh boy, it was obnoxious.
Thank God it wasn't on every wall. It was just the wall that the bed was against. Oy, good Lord, that was an ugly bedroom.
So yeah, and Columbo's at the house, the mansion, interviewing everybody, and it's kind of a funny scene. He interviews Ruth. Ruth confides in him. Well, we just not recently. I'm sorry. There was an ashtray. I was going to report it, but Edward said not to. But it's been gone for a while. I suspected Milton. But
wait, I have to go
yeah.
back a bit. I have to ask you this, because I did not. I remember her telling him that there were items missing, but does she mention the belt buckle?
Yeah, she specifically says it was like a Byzantine something or another. She describes it to Columbo.
Huh.
And so he also interviews. So she's basically throwing Janie under the bus right now.
Uh-huh.
But Columbo also interviews Phyllis, who faints again. He interviews Janie, basically leaves her alone, and he interviews the house or the maid.
Okay, I found this funny.
Kathy, her name was Kathy. He interviews Kathy, the maid.
She basically has two lines in the whole thing, and he knocks on the door, walks in her in the kitchen, and she screams and drops something, and he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. I'm sorry. I knocked twice." She goes, "I was in the kitchen." Was she Irish or Scottish or something? Because I noticed that there's a trend in Columbo of
I didn't notice that. No.
female murderers having Irish or Scottish maids. Specifically,
Like the Forgotten Lady.
Yeah, Forgotten Lady, Try and Catch Me. He was putting his cigar butts in there.
That's right. I forgot about that one. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Forgotten Lady.
Oh no. Maybe the Scots make really good maids.
They make
Please
good.
don't be offended if you're Scottish and you're listening to this podcast.
There's a Scottish maid listening right now.
Well-
She's tearing the phones off and like tearing off her apron. Oh, this fucking podcast.
Unsubscribing. Well, it's kind of like, it's weird. It's like if you have a gardener, they're going to be Asian in Columbo. That's
Oh
weird
yeah.
too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Of course, we're idiots for not realizing that California has a huge influx of Asian people, because that's where they usually go when they leave Asia, because it's the closest U.S. states closest of the U.S. states. And anyway, don't get me started.
I'm sure we'll get some kind of feedback in regards to
Yeah.
this. But yeah, it's Ruth that kind of suggests that maybe you should get a search warrant, which I think pretty much incriminates her.
Yeah, it does.
At this point.
I don't think it was a smart move at all.
Yeah.
I just don't get it, because and I'm showing my cards here. I know that you like to wait until the end, because this episode I've never actually sat and watched it. It was one of the last episodes that I watched, and ever, like maybe the second to last episode that I watched. The one after this one, the Bye Bye Sky High IQ murder case, was the last episode that I ever watched. Yeah.
Funny.
And I had read in the Columbo file book that it wasn't that good. And so I kind of like, the first time I watched it, I was kind of like, whatever, I'm not really into this. I didn't like her that much. Watching it again now, I like her.
Ruth?
Yeah, I do. I did. I enjoyed the character. I did not like Janie. I don't know if it was about the actress or just, I just feel like Ruth was just sort of put upon and hindered by the family business and, her sister. And I just think that she's too, I think that she regards her family too highly to frame her niece for the murder. And I think you mentioned this.
Yeah.
I think she's much more likely to frame her sister for the murder because she has a reason to get back at her sister.
Well, yeah, because the sister is starting to notice money's depleting, and she
Yeah.
can't afford. You know, it's funny. Edward says, Phyllis is starting to notice the grocery bills.
Uh-huh.
What I took that as the liquor store bill. You know? She doesn't care about the food. That's the last thing. She just wants to have enough, like, scotch to keep going.
I like the
living the lifestyle she likes.
The performance of the actress is pretty good because when we first meet her, she just came back from a cocktail party, and you can tell she's sloshed. But when we meet her again, she obviously isn't sloshed, and it's not like a drunken like Vito Scotti and Negative Reaction. Hey, how you doing? She does drunk really well without being like obnoxious. You can just tell it's a really good performance by Celeste Holm. The fainting, I don't know, but that's not her fault.
Well, yeah. So at one point when Columbo says, "Oh no," so Sergeant Miller finds the ashtray, as we call it so far. He says we found it in Janie's room, and so Columbo says, "Okay, book her," and he goes in to tell Janie's mother, Phyllis, and what she say? Something like, "I'll have you disbarred, Columbus."
That was funny. Disbarred or whatever. That's what you do with.
And he says, like, "Do you mean fired?"
I think the word you're looking for is fired.
So then that's when Sergeant Miller reads Janie her rights, and Phyllis faints again.
Yeah.
So
that's kind of a good reason to faint. Someone's coming to arrest your daughter. Although Ruth and Janie don't seem the least bit fazed by the whole thing. So I guess then we go to the only scene that I know of in Columbo history in which Columbo visits somebody in prison.
Not yet. There's one other scene right before that. So Columbo is now listening to the inventory tapes.
Oh yeah, that's right.
So he's back at the museum. Miller says, "You've been here for 7 hours. Why don't you give it a break?" And Columbo goes, "No, I know something in this recording." Columbo is notorious for listening to audio over and over and over until there's something always he's missing. He's got to listen to it. But in this case, he actually finds... I'm going to go ahead and spoil it right now, but he finds out that the ashtray, actually it was called a belt buckle, was inventoried by Edward during this recording. But that doesn't make sense. It wouldn't line up because if it was missing 2 weeks ago, as Ruth said, then it wouldn't be inventoried.
Right.
Yeah.
Although that's not really revealed until
a few scenes
until
later.
yeah.
But that's what he discovers during that scene. Columbo does go to visit Janie in jail. Yeah.
And he has the belt buckle with him, and he brings
a few things with him.
He brings her cigarettes because she smokes like a fucking chimney, and he brings her a cheeseburger because fortunately she's not a heart patient, and he's got the briefcase that Schaefer used,
and a bunch of ketchup packets.
Oh, lots of ketchup packets.
Why do I believe Columbo would have a ton of that at his house? Just a bunch of ketchup packets.
We've got that. I think we've got a drawer with soy sauce packets that are 20 years old.
Oh.
Which is ironic because we've got 2 bottles of soy sauce on hand at all times.
He also pulls out what we all think of as the ashtray. Mm-hmm. And what he's doing is he wants to see if Janie recognizes the piece, because that would have been the piece she stole. And he just kind of wanted to prove, I guess in his mind, that she had nothing to do with stealing that thing, and that it was somebody else that kind of set her up, which would be her Aunt Ruth. But he also says he shares with Janie that he also suspects that Ruth killed her father.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, he wasn't in the best of health, but there was he was given some chemicals or something that kind of pushed him over.
Right.
And he suspects that Ruth was the one. Of course, she gets pissed off. She She puts her cigarette out in the ashtray. I mean, if it was to her, it was a valuable piece of property to the museum. She would not have used it as an ashtray, and she definitely wouldn't have slung it across the room when she got angry at Columbo.
True that. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So that proves to him that she's never seen that piece before. How could she steal it if she's not familiar with it?
In
right?
fact,
if it was a value, she would have treated it much better.
He even tests her by saying, do you recognize it? And she says, yeah, that's the bag that Schaefer had when he was shot. Because she saw, when she discovered the crime scene. I don't think that there is another scene where Columbo visits somebody in prison, although I may be wrong about that.
Interesting. So, okay, we finally make it to the last scene of this episode. Columbo releases Janie. He does not suspect her to be the killer. It doesn't make any sense, so he brings her home. Of course, Phyllis is happy that Columbo is releasing her.
Ruth doesn't bat an eyelash when she answers the door, like, "Oh, Janie, it's so great to see you out of jail."
Well, yeah, because she knows that her scheme has failed with Columbo. But yeah, we find out that the first thing Janie says to her aunt, "Don't believe a word he says."
Mm-hmm.
But it's so funny because Columbo doesn't say anything. Janie spills the beans. So Columbo doesn't. He just kind of just nods his head, and Janie's like, "Well, he said this about you. He said that you killed my father." And Columbo kind of lets it play out during this scene.
But what was the point? What was the point of Columbo making Janie think that Ruth killed her father?
So I kind of went back and forth on this. I don't know if Columbo, because it actually lied about this to kind of, I don't know, agitate Janie, or if it actually happened. I kind of want to think it actually happened.
I like to think it actually happened too.
Yeah. Because, there's a point where everything's falling apart for Ruth, and she looks at Columbo and she says, there's no reason for Janie to know that but I did not kill her father, right, Lieutenant? And I don't know if he's saying that to kind of protect Janie because it would destroy her, that because she loves her aunt so much.
Yeah.
But it would come out in the trial. They even say that everything will come out in the trial. And of course, one of the things that Phyllis would say throughout the episode, because she's such a lush and a little freak, she would always say, "I never leave a room or never leave a party without being on a man's arm."
Right.
That was her thing. And being that, again, two completely different personalities. Ruth and Phyllis were two different women. Ruth was more of a bookworm. She obviously more intelligent. But she looks at Columbo after realizing she's lost and says, will you walk me out on your arm?
Mm-hmm.
So kind of her.
Yeah, I ended up walking out with a man at the end there, Phyllis. But the proof that, of course, the gotcha clue is that Columbo caught Ruth in a lie by saying that the belt buckle was missing when actually it was in the inventory. She told Columbo that Edward knew that the belt buckle was missing, but that couldn't have been because Edward listed it in the inventory in the tape recording on the night he died. It's kind of like the exercise and fatality clue. You're the only person who knew that he changed his gym clothes, so if somebody put on his gym clothes for him, it could only be you. But that's not extremely clear by the way it ends. It ends a little bit elegantly, but I don't think the gotcha clue is quite driven home quite that well. And it's overshadowed by the news that Ruth may have killed Janie's father. So,
right.
And that's it. And cut. And okay. So, but we're going to listen to some messages from our sponsors, and then we'll be back to rate this.
After these messages, we'll be right back.
It's great pizza. And low prices.
That's why a Showbiz sells more pizza than anyone else. Showbiz makes fresh dough every day, heaps on real cheese and quality toppings, then bakes it in special ovens, time to the second. You'll stay for the newest games and rides, but it's the pizza that keeps you coming back to Showbiz.
I bet that pizza tastes good.
A Showbiz Pizza Place.
Okay. And we're back. Steve, what are we rating this out of? I didn't hear any numbers in this one at all.
There were a few numbers. But the one I liked the most, the one that made me kind of chuckle to myself, was we're going to rate this tonight episode. We're going to rate this out of a $5 manicure.
Okay.
So I went first last time, I believe. So tonight's your turn.
Okay. I really was not thinking I was really thinking I was not going to like this at all. I have some real problems with this episode. I have a real problem with the fact that Ruth would frame her niece. That doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's going to lose some points for me for that. However, I still kind of enjoyed it. I didn't like the guy who played Miller was atrocious. I didn't like the actress who played Janie. She was really great. She had a small part in this a couple of years ago. There was a HBO miniseries called The Night Of, and she played the district attorney. She was pretty cool in that. In this, she's just kind of like a what's the word I'm looking for? Namby-pamby, Pippi Longstocking kind of. I don't know. She just seems a little bit out of it, a lot, and I didn't enjoy her. She didn't have a good screen presence for me. I thought that the fainting jokes were fine. Whatever. I don't know. I like the fact that the second time she faints, we don't see her faint. We just see the after effects. It just cuts to her laying out in the divan, because she just fainted. But I don't think would anybody do that in real life? Because if you do, I think you need to see a doctor, because that's like
it's kind of like those goats that you see that people will scare and they just like drop over. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, that she must have like some goat DNA in her.
Yes, that's it. Phyllis had goat DNA in her. But I really liked Ruth Lytton, and I liked the family history, the soap opera-ish stuff. I like the implication that she may be Janie's mother. Maybe, maybe not. The implication that she
but
may...
you think she would have him... Yeah, but that's the problem, I guess, at the end. Why would she frame Janie if that was her daughter?
Yeah, that doesn't make a lick of sense. That even if it was her niece, she has no animosity towards her at all.
But why did Columbo bring up those dates of her birth being too close to the honeymoon?
Yeah. I don't even understand why Columbo would make Janie think that she killed her father. It's just weird. I
think she did, but I think as a last request from Ruth was like, she doesn't need to know this. Let's protect her. Which is bizarre because she didn't protect her when she was trying to frame her from
her. It doesn't make any sense. It's almost, and I'm stealing this from the other podcast. They suggested this, and I agree. It's almost like a third way through the, or 2/3 through the screenplay, somebody else picked it up and finished it off. And they didn't know or think about that much about the characters. The gotcha clue is good, I think. But I want to like this. What is it out of 5? That's kind of easy.
$5.
Yeah, out of $5 manicure. You know what this is? This is before I watched this today, I was gonna say this was a $2 manicure. This is not the best episode at all. And I think this season there's some really great top-notch episodes. Right before this is the William Shatner one. Right after it is the Bye Bye Sky High IQ Murder Case, and then there's Try and Catch Me and Murder Under Glass. In those last 2 seasons,
great episodes.
Yeah, and it's weird because some of the best episodes are in the last season. So it's like, why'd you Why'd you cancel? I'm sure there's other reasons for that, but so I'm going to give this a $3 manicure.
Okay.
All right, and
Interesting.
I'm willing to explore this. Go back and watch this one again, which I can't say for some of the ones that some of the others that I would give a $3 manicure to. So it's complex, and I think it needed to be a little bit longer. And also, this is another case where Columbo doesn't know the motive for the crime. Why would Ruth kill her brother? That doesn't make any sense.
That's a very good point. Wow.
That is
that.
that is never brought up. Their financial situation is never brought up to Columbo, because for all Columbo knew, Ruth and her brother, they were managing the museum jointly, and they both loved the museum. So he has no inkling of why. And we didn't talk about when he knew Ruth was the murderer. There's no.
Yeah. Good point. Yeah, we usually discuss that. When did he suspect Ruth? And I had a hard time with that. When watching this, I couldn't really distinguish a point in the story where Columbo said, "Yep, she's the one," and I'm gonna concentrate on her.
I think I know what it is. I think it was later on.
What do you think it is?
I think it was the moment that she got so involved in it that she told Columbo about how there was an object missing, and then she eventually she talked too much, but that's not like a solid clue. You need some solid evidence. I think he knew for sure after Janie's reaction to the belt buckle, because he essentially has three suspects. He's got the
I thought she played it really well.
yeah.
I don't know really what clue she gave off by being so commutative with Columbo. I just don't. She never said too much, but she was. There's one scene where. Actually, I say that, but there's one scene where when Columbo is interviewing the family, everybody in the family, where he freaks out Kathy, the maid. There's a scene where he's asking about, has anything gone missing, and that's when she brings up the belt buckle. But she's very emotional. She's very calm and collective and very precise. She's a cool cucumber, so to speak. But in that one scene, she's very emotional.
She implies that he should get a search warrant, and then when he actually mentions the search warrant, she loses it. But she's not really losing it. That
maybe that's the scene.
Yeah, maybe he's like, well, the way she's acting, I don't really know. And I think that the scenes between them are totally worth rewatching. The scene when they first have their first talk, when he's hanging out in the murder room and she's upstairs and she's like, I don't know what the fuck I'm going to do with this guy. And then she goes, that is actually a great Columbo murderer scene. And I think that he respects her a great deal.
Oh, yeah. Well, he walked her out on his arm.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, she's pretty cool in his eyes, despite the fact that, she fucking killed two people.
Well, she was very complimentary of Columbo throughout the
She
whole
was.
Like, you're very smart. Oh, how'd you get that? That's you're smarter than you say. You're very tricky. I mean, she was very complimentary of Columbo.
Yeah, she just don't. She basically told him at one point, "Don't pee on my leg and tell me it's draining." Gosh, I'm liking it more the more I talk about it.
It's so bizarre because so you gave it $3 out of 5. Okay, so it's funny. I really enjoyed this, but talking to you had the opposite reaction. You're bringing up things that really bothered me now, and I was going to give this a very high score. Oh, higher than what I initially was until talking to you about it. You've actually lowered my score.
Really?
Because of the things you brought up. I initially really enjoyed this. And I would probably place this in the $4.50
really
kind of range.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
But some of the things you said kind of made me think that maybe this isn't that high. I mean, I enjoyed the performances of all the actors. I thought they were all great. Even Sergeant Miller. I'm sorry, but
I know a thing or two about relics.
Yes, but what you bring up about this season, this is probably one of the best seasons of Columbo, because you mentioned you rattled some off that are really, really good episodes. And this, I'm not looking at a list right now, but from memory, this is probably the weakest episode from the season. That doesn't halt or affect the grade that much, but some of the things you brought up earlier kind of do bother me about, about what is Ruth's relationship to Janie. I mean, it's still higher than what you gave it, the $3. So I'm going to give it like $3.75.
Okay, so $3 and a tip for Daryl.
A tip for Daryl, yes.
Yeah.
But I enjoyed this overall. There are some plot points that don't make sense. I agree with you. It is definitely not the best of the season. It's still good. I mean, I guess I never really thought about it, but season 6 is really nice. It's a really good season for Columbo.
Yeah.
And it's the last one. Is it the last one of the old?
Well, you know what? 6 and 7 are both in the same DVD box.
Yeah.
Because there's only a couple episodes in each season, so I personally think of them all as the same season for that reason. But
interesting. Okay.
I mean, there's also the conspirators
Yeah,
with the Irish guy that we did so long ago. Make Me a Perfect Murder with the TV executive. You have 4 minutes. Oh, I love that one. And on paper that shouldn't be a good one, but it still is. Yeah.
But I like the humor. There was a lot of funny moments. Again, Daryl, Phyllis fainting all the time. I thought Milton. I love Milton. I mean, the motherfucker is smoking a cigarette indoors. Cigarette tray right next to him. He throws it on the ground. He doesn't extinguish it with his foot. He just lets the cigarette burn through on the floor. Less than a foot away from an ashtray. What an asshole.
Yeah.
He's the reason why we can't smoke in restaurants anymore.
Exactly. Not that I want to smoke in restaurants, unless I'm drunk and it's like coffee. Oh, man, remember those days when you just stay out until 2 a.m. and then go have pancakes or something and coffee and smoke?
And have sex with Phyllis? Yeah.
Well, it wasn't Phyllis I was having sex with back then, but okay. So, all right.
But overall, I think despite our scores, I think we both agree it was an enjoyable episode.
Yeah, it was. I think I actually like this, and I should. People are going to scoff at this. People listen. I think I actually like this more than A Stitch in Crime, the Leonard Nimoy episode, and that is like a really highly regarded, like, can't touch this type thing. But for some reason, I've never really liked that episode. But this was one thing, and this isn't really important. There's no mentions of your wife. Oh no, he does mention his wife. He does mention his wife just once, and there's the car, of course.
About relics. His wife likes relics.
Yeah, mine too. And he does make a reference. I think maybe that was a reference to Troubled Waters when he mentions that they went on vacation and he had to get an inoculation, which we don't have to nowadays. I don't think so. So
depends where you go.
I went to Thailand and I didn't get an inoculation.
And you got pink eye. Interesting. Yeah.
I didn't get pink eye in Thailand. I was much more likely to get something else. Okay. Is, for those of you who don't enjoy the feedback portion of the show, you are in luck because there is no feedback for this episode. Because we basically shot our wad last episode when all those emails came in. So I guess it's time, once again, Steve, for you to spin the swinging wheel of the 70s. Or as I just call it nowadays, the wheel.
The wheel. All right, let's do it. Can't wait. I'm so excited.
It's my favorite time of the podcast. I'm nervous. All right, we are going to watch... We are going to watch Candidate for Crime, starring Jackie Cooper as a murderous candidate for crime. Starring, who else is in this? Nobody that I can think of.
Peter Falk.
Oh yeah, Peter Falk's in it.
I'm trying to remember this one. Have I seen this one?
I have a funny feeling you've never watched this one. This is
I think I have.
So the guy that's in this, Jackie Cooper, and I should probably do a little bit more research, but he was an actor. Do you ever see those old Charlie Chan? I've never seen the movies myself, but like the clips of Charlie Chan with the little boy and all that. That's who Jackie Cooper is. And he's
you know who
in
else
this.
is in this? Vito
Who else?
Scotti.
Oh, that's right. Yes, he plays the haberdasher, the tailor. And I'm sure Mike Lally is in it somewhere. So,
Of course, yeah.
that will be our final episode for this season, which means, by the way, let me make sure. Oh, wait, no, we still have, this is the second to last longer episode that we have to watch, because we still have Swan Song on the list. So, yeah, that'll be it.
Katie Seagal's in this.
Yes, she's in it for blink and you miss it. This was the first thing that she was ever in. So, yeah.
Very good.
All right.
All right, Sean.
All right. So with that, say goodnight, Steve. All right.
Good night.
Good nights, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Columbo Confab podcast. To email us with a comment or question, write to columboconfab@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter @columboconfab and look for us on Facebook. If you're enjoying the show, please leave us some happy reviews on iTunes.
I love clues.
And the Oscar goes to...
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 Hi, my name is Sean, and I am the co-host of the Best Picture podcast. Each season, my co-host Eric and I randomly select a year and talk about the Best Picture nominees of that year, with each episode dedicated to a different movie. Did the Best Picture really win? Were there any overlooked movies? Was anything nominated that probably shouldn't have been? Listen to us and find out. Look for us wherever you can get fine podcasts.